Guys, I'm floored. Truly I am. The amount of words that I can possibly describe for this movie would not possibly be enough for what I'm about to say. But now that we're here, let's get to the subject at hand. Aside from How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, Frozen 2 was my most anticipated animated film of the whole year. And the reason behind that is simple. I absolutely adored with a passion the first Frozen, which was one of my favorite films of 2013. I remember watching this movie for the first time like it was yesterday. It was 4 days before Christmas on holiday of 2013 in an Alamo Draft House, as it had much to offer, like tremendous animation, endearing characters, hysterical jokes, a story that made fun of the traditional tropes and formulas that have been portrayed and reused in past Disney movies, with timeless and catchy songs that are still being sung and covered to this day. It also has become one of those movies that the more I watched it over time, the more it continues to grow on me. The same way that movies like Nine, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and How to Train Your Dragon have connected with me in my adolescence, providing such a relatable and personal experience to me that I didn't expect in any animated movie for quite some time. As it stands, this animated juggernaut has taken the throne as the highest grossing animated film of all time, and has become a huge animated phenomenon within pop culture. So as you can imagine, coming into the fall movie season, Frozen 2 was my most anticipated film of the fall, mostly due to the teasers and its trailers. Once the trailers premiered, I could not believe my eyes at how astonishingly beautiful that this movie looked, and how the sequel tends to go into a more darker and more of a mature direction. I thought this was going to be amazing, but then something came to mind. Disney has been usually disappointing and mediocre when releasing sequels to extraordinarily popular animated films, as they exist to either generate more money or to become forgettable straight-to-DVD fodder. In my review of the previous animated film made by Walt Disney, that being Ralph Breaks the Internet, I thought it was a totally inoffensive, disposable sequel. But in the case of Frozen 2, I've been hopeful, but incredibly nervous for the sequel, because at the same time, it feels like the scales of Lady Justice. It could exceed everyone's expectation and generate something that will surpass the levels of grandeur that was in the first movie, or it could suffer from sequelitis and squander any potential, seeing how the movie left with such a groundbreaking mark. However, I am more than proud to say that Frozen 2 is about as phenomenal, extraordinary, and breathtaking as I hope. This movie is a triumph beyond epic proportions, to such a degree that I haven't been fulfilled and awed by any animated movie since the first Frozen and How to Train Your Dragon 2. So how does Frozen 2 manage to stick the landing effortlessly in this highly anticipated sequel that everyone has been waiting for? Well everyone, let's go into the unknown and discover for ourselves. The story of Frozen 2 takes place 3 years after the original, and everything is prosperous and harmonious in the kingdom of Arendelle. However, Elsa hears a mysterious voice which calls to her from a distance that is located somewhere beyond the far reaches of the north, which unfortunately leads to the endangerment of Arendelle itself. So she takes it upon herself, along with her sister Anna and others like Kristoff and Sven and the goofy snowman Olaf, to find out where that voice came from, as it will take her and her friends through a journey with old histories and revelations unfolding, including finding the origin of Elsa's magical power. Usually in terms of animated sequels released in theaters, it's become somewhat of a routine these days, where the first movie filled its audience with such excitement, nostalgia, and wonder, and a sequel may lead to a much more sincere and darker direction, developing further on the complexities of the characters and giving them time to grow, and seeing how they progressed after the events of the original film. However, this matters entirely on execution. Frozen 2 does it tremendously. The story flows into such a remarkably emotional direction, filled with narrative sacrifices that the audience would not expect. And without giving too much away, the film pays off immensely due to the conflicts, struggles, and relatable arcs that the characters are going through throughout their journey. Not to mention that the voice cast in this film is far much better than the first time around. There's more raw emotion and gravitas behind the performances of the voice actors, from Kristen Bell delivering a fearless performance as Anna, to Jonathan Groff honing in a much more brilliant role as Kristoff. But the true standout to me without hesitation. Okay, now, this may sound quite weird and unusual, seeing how I'm a dude whose main priority is to watch usually every movie to my liking, whether it's an action movie or whatever it may be. But this is something I had to get off my chest, in the same vein that I talked about characters like Caesar, Spider-Man, Luke Skywalker, and Judge Claude Frollo. Elsa is one of the best characters I have ever seen in a Disney movie, maybe in films in general. I have never attached more to any animated character on a personal and relatable level, and she's a Disney princess. What are the odds? The reason as to why I say this is because her turmoil and hardships have impacted me in such a way that every single time there was a scene that had to do with her, I was like, wow, that kind of reminds me of me. Her resulting into isolation, being an introverted individual with a lack of friendly company, and then having to persevere and embracing herself as a person is what made me gravitate towards her. But what makes her so much better in Frozen 2 is that instead of the script repeating the same character story that had been presented in the first film, the character grows into a much more courageous and expressive individual who is willing to do whatever it takes to save the people she cares about. And Idina Menzel, as usual, delivers a strikingly impactful performance, giving the character a complexity and nuance that makes Elsa's character shine through the stratosphere. I wish I could go on and on for days as to why I love the character in the first place, but I think by now you get the point. Now, this especially has to be addressed when talking about a movie like this: the animation. Now, I understand with animated films, especially those made by Walt Disney, that I have coined the phrase that the animation is transcendent and game-changing. But with Frozen 2's animation, there is no exaggeration in that statement. This may be one of the most beautiful looking animated movies I've ever seen in my life. Everything in this movie that has to do with the character design, the world building, the environmental design, including the water in this film, which is beautiful to look at, and even the magical powers that are used are jaw-dropping. But where the animation is taken at its absolute apex is a scene in the trailers that has to do with Elsa encountering a water horse. And if you thought that moments like that were amazing at first sight, trust me, it gets better from there. And continuing on from the list of elements that make Frozen 2 such a masterful piece of animation is its scale. It is staggering beyond repair. Very rarely will I ever talk about a film's scale, storyboarding, and its overall design of the world, but Frozen 2's cinematography and scale is unreal. There is not a single frame in this movie that disappoints. Every single shot of this film doesn't feel grandiose or big for the sake of it. All of it, like shots of our main characters looking at a wall of mist, and even Elsa facing the vicious tide of the ocean, is earned in this movie that calling it beautiful enough to become a painting is an understatement. And while the film does have its emotional and dramatic scenes, the comedy relief in this film also provides a break from the drama and brings in subtle moments of comedy. And the comedy relief in this movie is side-splitting, to say the least. Most notably moments that have to do with Josh Gad as Olaf the Snowman, who has so many scenes in this movie that will leave you cackling in your seat. Now comes the part that everyone wants me to talk about: the songs. Are you ready? Let's do this. First of all, you do get your fair share of the hilarious kind of song numbers, like one from Olaf that has to do with him trying to comprehend basic lessons and understandings of life once he gets older, and the other that involves Kristoff having a hysterical musical number that it has the presentation and the aesthetic of a New Edition or Meatloaf music video. It was absolutely brilliant, yet humorous at the same time. The best tracks are without question from Elsa, and while it may sound like I'm perfectly biased on the subject, well, okay, maybe I am. But I'm deeply wholehearted when I say this. Her song numbers steal the movie. You've all heard it multiple times, whether it's on the web or on the radio or even on the television, of the iconic song, Let It Go. But brace yourselves, for there are songs in this movie that kids and teenagers will sing repetitiously like it's karaoke night at a coffee shop. The highly anticipated Into the Unknown starts out in an incredibly soft and melodic tune, and then it bursts with the animation with life and energy as the chorus hits. It's a sensational song, but what really makes Idina Menzel's voice go to the top of her game is with the song Show Yourself. That song alone made the hair in the back of my neck stand up. It's an unbelievably powerful song that it might as well be my uncontested favorite. And even the score by Christoph Beck from the first Frozen is about as heroic, gut-punching, and heartwarming as anything this year in terms of original score. Frozen 2 is an undisputed masterpiece of animation. Everything that has to do with the characters, the animation, the song numbers, the scale, and the cinematography, and even the hilarious comedy is all present and accounted for in tremendous and magnificent display. This is the kind of movie that I desperately wanted to see in 2019. Out of all of the films that I have seen in 2019, whether they have exceeded my expectations or disappointed me to a certain extent, none of the films that I have seen have touched me on a personal and an emotional level like Frozen 2 did. Frozen 2 is beauty at its absolute finest, and for that particular reason, it gets that highest honor it truly deserves. Favorite movie of the year? I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that one. But for now, kids, teenagers, parents, everyone go out to see this film. Please spend your hard-earned cash on a sequel that definitely deserves your attention. I've already seen it for myself, and you, my friends, definitely should do likewise. Alright guys, so that was my review of Frozen 2. If you like this video, please like and comment below what you thought of the movie yourself, if you've seen it already. You'll also find me on media outlets such as Facebook, Twitter, and if you have a phone, possibly find me on Instagram. And as always, if you like more reviews like this, be sure to subscribe for more. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Luke Nukem. And I know what that means.